Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Sync Society podcast. I am super excited because I have Whitney Stuart here, who I have often described as my big sister. I am an eldest daughter. I don't have an older sister myself, but Whitney has just been a constant presence of advice. She is a dietitian and has incredible perspective that has really helped me throughout all my health and well-being journey, especially when I got my PCOS diagnosis 5 years ago and blood sugar balance was the most important thing for me to be looking at. She's also given me advice on boys and dating, but we'll save that for another time. The tough love was very helpful throughout my formative early 20s. So thank you for that, Whitney. But we're really excited to talk to you today about the importance of fueling high performance women and what that looks like. And I will pass up to Whitney to share a little bit more about her background and then we'll get into it.
Hi. Well, I'm so excited to be here. I'm so thankful that Kaylee reached out and decided to have me on. And she knows that at the end of the day, my favorite thing to do is talk. And the second thing to do is to talk about ways to support other people. My love language is definitely helping others. And that has been a really important part of my career and its rewarding aspects of it. And ironically, my ideal client and the one that I see most regularly is uber successful females who have put their self on the back burner for 2 to 3 decades and wonder why their body is falling apart. So, this is a really timely conversation, especially because many of your listeners are probably early in those stages. Still, before we get to maybe those extreme levels, we can do some work to prevent some of the long term consequences I see when we ignore our bodies for the most part. So, I've credential wise, like I've been a dietitian for this is my 11th year. I was a pre-med undergrad. I did a master's in clinical nutrition. I board certified additional 2 years in diabetes, did a lot of different discovery and a lot of different areas of clinical work, and then eventually owned and opened my own practice I've been doing full time for the past 4 years. So here we are.
Amazing. Yes. No, your story is super incredible too. And 11 years, that's no small amount there. Which is awesome. So 4 years ago, you said you went full time on your own?
Yep, we're coming up on 4 years. I think I'm at like this is my fourth year. So at the end of the year, I'll like come into my fourth year of paying my accountant full time.
What was that journey like for you? And how did you know it was time to take your business full time?
That's such a good question, and I'm so glad that you brought that up because I think there is a really big push on like being an entrepreneur and being a female entrepreneur and like making your own hours and doing all the things. And that is definitely my life now, but that is not how I started. And I remind all of my interns, everybody I see, that I really think the thing that made me, quote, the most successful is that I did the work and I saw what traditional conventional work settings looked like for a dietitian first. I told myself after my master's that I would spend the first 5 years in a normative clinical setting and I would learn as much as I could. I'm like, these are my sponge years. Like, all I can do is say yes 100% of my effort given to a system that already exists before I build
Hmm.
my own. And that was really helpful because it helped me understand what the normal dietitian does, what the normal dietitian gets paid, who we work with. I experienced so much of what the general population looks like, not the 1% weird aesthetic that we see on social media that's curated to our algorithm, and understood what like the real problems of the world were. So after my master's, I started at a big hospital and worked in that hospital system through ICU, surgery, NICU, renal, cardiac for a year and a half before I went to DaVita where I did renal. But during that time, I was doing a ton of continuing education, just trying to figure out like where is my best niche? Where am I best suited? I got the most complaints in cardiovascular health. So I figured out that those old white men were probably not my population to serve. They
Complaints
didn't.
against you?
Yes, because I was too assertive. They were not ready to hear what I had to say. And I was like, that's totally fine. We are not a good fit. Thank you so much. Um, but those early years helps you very much like dating, figure out where you belong in
Yeah.
your world. And not all like dietitians are not meant to serve every population. I think that we all belong in a really strong niche. And so as I did that, I took on a role interning at Equinox to experience a very different population. And I started seeing patients kind of through my own practice nights and weekends. So I was working in the hospital, doing nights and weekends on my own and interning at Equinox. And at that time, I was still very much in like my discovery mode. Like, what can I do to learn as much as I can? And so it wasn't until I had board certified in diabetes, worked in renal care, certified in renal, certified in malnutrition, until I had gone down to 4 days a week at an outpatient setting where I was already an expert in diabetes, that I now had a private practice, LLC, that I was running 1 day a week and then at a clinic
Hmm.
4 days a week. And it wasn't until I hit a 70-30 income split where I could see that I had so much more potential to make more income for myself than I did at that clinic that I left. But what helped so much was understanding that like I had a really strong income buffer for those first 5 years. So as I built my practice, I didn't have to rush. I could do it right.
Mm,
I could figure out exactly where I wanted to be. And I really believe that as like a female entrepreneur, the reason that I have had such a strong retention rate with clients is that they know that I'm not doing it for the money. I set up my practice to be in a way that I could serve them and it not be a stressful scenario where like you can feel when someone's like, I really need this sale. Like, I
yeah.
really need this money. And I never wanted it to feel like that because I've sat in doctor's offices where I am a number and I never wanted my patients to feel that way. Because at the end of the day, those doctors are just looking for your money. And I never wanted patients to feel that way. I
Yeah.
wanted to feel like I was serving their body and their heart. So
Yeah.
it took me a long time to get there, but I feel like it made a difference doing it that longer, harder way.
Yeah. No, that's really special and cool. And I will say that like being on the other side of your content and watching you build your business, one thing I will say, I never have I ever seen or felt desperation from your end. It's all
Yeah,
just passion and authenticity. And one of the things that you never shy away from is telling it like it is and telling the truth,
yeah,
even when it's like not the beautiful packaged up way to say something, and honestly something that might in some ways intimidate
okay.
clients or make them say, whoa, like that's that's not what
Yeah,
everyone else is saying, or whoa, is that really
yeah.
true? Is that some a way that you've always been? Do you feel like you've grown in that boldness over time, or a little bit of both?
That is such a good question. I think that my personality naturally lends to be more like bossy and intimidated or
Yeah.
intimidating. Ever since I was little, I remember like in 7th grade asking my mom, like, why doesn't he like me? And she was like, he's just intimidated by you. And that stuck with me like for life. That men were just intimidated by me. But
Yeah.
being like a type A OCD overachiever only child, I feel like I like having an opinion and I like being able to assert myself. So putting myself in a field where I could do that, where I could be an expert on something was really important, where I could lead. But when I started as a dietitian in the hospital, we did rounds every day in the ICU, and that was not the role that I thought I was taking, but we had a dietitian leave, so it was mine.
Hmm.
And as a new dietitian, I felt very uncomfortable stating what I thought to be true or what I thought would be good for a patient. And my boss sat me down that first week and she said, you need to get a backbone. And if you don't, this career is going to trample you and you're not going to make it.
Wow.
And in that moment, it was so obvious that this job that barely paid my bills needed to be mine. And it was like a sink or swim moment. And I was like, all
Yeah.
right, let's go. And from that moment, I never turned back. It was just so clear. Like, she was kind about it, but she was also like, I need you to be strong and confident. Like, you have a master's degree, show it. And so from that day forward, I was like, all right, like, even if I don't know the answer, I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to fake it until I make it. And that was so helpful because dietitians are a really strong, like, female population. And most individuals in the hospital are male figures. And
Hmm.
so it was a very like male driven, high pressure world. And so if you don't show up like a man, being able to strongly state your opinion, you're not going to be taken seriously. It's not hard to get online and talk about these things because I have a perspective of working in chronic care that is vastly more intense than anything else.
There are so many things that come and go. Like I'm even thinking of, let's say the past couple of years, everyone was obsessed with collagen and then creatine and greens powders. And it seems, right, there's always something that people say off the shelf, this is going to heal every single issue you have, or this is the top thing. And on the other hand, there are things that people are demonizing and saying, hey, this, you actually need to cut everything out, whether it's seed oils, whether it's meat, whether it's even like gluten and dairy, which I will say
Vegetables.
I personally do, because I have seen, some benefits of kind of reducing certain food groups, but there's a lot of
Food
intense
noise.
food noise in the media and things that, how do people sort through it when they're getting ad after ad after ad of this is going to solve everything for you. And then on the other hand of things, hearing, yeah, if you eat seed oils or whatever the topic is of the week, that it's going to derail all your progress. And yeah, so how do you navigate kind of the noise in the media one way or another?
I think people would be really surprised if they were able to live in my brain. It's like a really peaceful it's a really peaceful place. When I get on social media, because I have science and evidence as my guiding light, 80% of what I see online is just noise that I don't listen to. I just turn it off, or I just swipe through, or I unfollow so quickly, because I have the expertise to say, like, not true, not true, not true, not true. And so for my clients, my biggest goal is that they learn the function of food and how to tell if something is true or not. And so it's really easy for my clients to say, well, I got targeted for this protein bar, but it only has 5 grams of protein and 40 grams of carb and 10 grams of added sugar. And I know we're trying to limit sugar and there's no fiber. And why is there not any protein? Like, they can start to work through it based on what they've learned with me. And I teach them what my brain knows how to do instantaneously, because the food noise is real. And the more you don't know, the easier it is for those companies to sway you. So the first question to always ask is, like, is this business or is this science?
Hmm.
So when I'm getting targeted for something, like, I have an intern right now and she's like, why is this product, like, all of my friends are asking about it. Why is this product so popular? And I'm like, it's a David Beckham product. And she's like, oh, okay, thank you. Like, she's always wondering, why is it business or science that's driving the popularity? Right. Sometimes a new novel study comes out and it's like, whoa. And similar to like creatine, like, I think creatine has come more into our world because there's a lot of science behind it and there's science about women behind it, which is really
Hmm.
rare.
Yeah.
So that's driven that. But with like greens powders or powders in general, there's oftentimes like celebrities who endorse or create or invest in a product and then it also rises. So we have to ask, like, is it the business or is it the science that's causing the virality around this?
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
that's always like a really good question to start with. Who makes this? Who bought it? Who's the investor? And the other aspect, and this doesn't always work, but is the product being shared by not famous practitioners, or is this being shared by uneducated influencers? And that usually also gives us a lot of data on if the product has any merit to it. Because as a health practitioner, if I get paid to promote a product from a company, it is very, very tight language that has to be utilized. I am only allowed to say certain things. And I am certainly not allowed to say that myoinositol reverses PCOS or that it solves PCOS. The wording has to be very clearly related to the science. And it's not going to be a heal you now, heal you yesterday, instantaneous fix.
100%. Yeah, I definitely see too, like word of mouth has taken on a whole new version because of social media. And so even you
Mhm.
see, I'm sure people are incentivized in some capacity or whatnot, but there are so many ads by people either saying, yeah, this
Yeah.
supplement changed my life or this or that. So it's definitely important to kind of pop open the hood and see what's actually going on there. What is the research? Maybe worth giving something a try, but also just kind of have that healthy skepticism of, like you said, what's driving the virality and where is it coming from? Let's take a little bit of a step back. So You talked about the type of women that you typically work with. When a woman comes to you, like where is she typically on her journey? What does that look like? And maybe what are some of the first things that you typically start her off with to kind
Yeah.
of start off that journey?
So my clients are so fun because when they come to me, I have a line on my discovery call that says like describe your lifestyle to me. And
Mm.
I have some prompts. And 98% of the time it says like I'm a badass working mom with a few kids. I'm doing some like extra thing. I'm tired and stressed and I want to lose weight. Tell me what to do. Some form of that phrase, almost always. And what's funny is my clients think that to lose weight, that they're going to come to me and I'm going to give them a rigid meal plan and they're going to follow it and everything's going to be better. And they come to me and they learn that I'm going to give them like education and empowerment. And if anything, I'm probably going to like implode all of the things that they think about nutrition to be true. And we're going to redesign it to be a more healthy, sustainable place that they can also use as messaging to like inspire their children, inspire their friends. We're probably going to do less supplements than they're currently doing. We're probably going to do more labs to be more guided on curated support. And they're probably going to eat more foods than they've ever been eating
Mm.
before. I feel like it's a surprise, but a welcomed one once my clients kind of get into the system. I'm like, well, have you thought about the fact that the reason that you're having crazy cravings is because you're skipping breakfast and just
You're not
drinking a
eating?
venti coffee and pretending like it's food? And so I'm not anti weight loss, but I am against the idea of losing weight if it doesn't improve your health. My goal is to improve your health, help you lose fat, help you gain muscle, help you be a stronger version of you. And most of my clients, ironically, if they're on the fence about getting pregnant, almost always get pregnant because the way that I teach people how to eat is a way that supports hormone health, which is the very basis of the importance of like blood sugar balance is
Hmm.
supporting your hormones, supporting insulin, supporting blood sugar so that your hormones thrive, your cycle is normal, you're not having as much fatigue, everything evens out and your body's like, we feel really good, we should get pregnant. Tends to happen a lot. So I warn people, like, if you're not interested in getting pregnant, please take care of that now because it's a very likely thing that could happen.
That's great. I know too, like, yeah, I the whole like not eating breakfast thing, it's so common in so many women or so many
So
people I
common.
see just like, oh, I'm just not so interested in that. And I joke that I like yell at my friends to eat 3 square meals a day. It's one of the things I'm most passionate about. I'm like, listen, you need to be having breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You need to be having protein at every meal. Even better if you can add fiber and even better if you can, cook it yourself so you know exactly what's in it and all of those things. But I know it can be hard and people feel like, okay, I'm on the go or
It is hard.
I can't always do that. And even personally, like I've had seasons where I'm meal prepping every single meal and I'm able to know exactly what's in everything. And there are other times maybe I'm outsourcing to Sweet Green or one of the other spots
Yeah.
around here. I'm sure a lot of the women that you work with or what you just described as well is these are busy women. These are women that maybe feel like, okay, I know what's optimal, but what's realistic for me. So what would you say to that woman who's like, okay, I get it. I know what I need to do. It feels maybe a little bit out of reach right now. What do you typically say to that woman?
Yeah, so none of my clients weigh their food or make their own sourdough starter. Like, we're not doing that. I work with moms who don't have time. So, my goal is health efficiency. Oftentimes, that means that we are outsourcing things. And I am very, very clear about that not being something that needs shame or guilt associated to it. I use prepared meal services. I order snacks that are processed that still work for my life. And so we're very clear about what margin do you have? How much time can you actually give to the kitchen, if at all? And where do we show up with health in between that? Like it's 2026. There is no excuse to not eat healthy. And also, you may have to forego certain things in order to make that work, period. Like you may have to use Snap Kitchen. You may have to use a prepared meal service. You may have to order boxes that you can put food in. Like you may have to hire someone to do some cooking for you. You can also do it yourself. You can also buy in bulk at Costco and we can use rotisserie chicken and frozen veggies. But there's always a like cost or convenience
Hmm.
continuum that we have to just be really honest about. And I think that some people aren't willing to have that conversation like without me, which is why it's so important to me to say like, hey, every week you are starting the week with an empty fridge. It's never going to work. How can we fix that? Like, can we just pack a Greek yogurt and a banana for breakfast? That might be a really good place to start. And then it's like, hey, it seems like we have been racking up $300 a week at Sweet Green. Do you think that we could perhaps order some prepared meals that's around the same price, but might keep you from snacking in the afternoon so that we can get to dinner, which is actually a cost savings? Like, I think that people have a really hard time looking at their full week and then budgeting appropriately because
Yeah.
eating out, picking up fast food, and snacking is where our budget is really affected. So for me, like I feel totally confident in getting my curated $6 coffee, whatever that I want every day because I meal prep my husband's breakfast and lunch every week. And I know that that's saving us like $70. So girl math, like my coffees are less than that per week.
Yeah,
But
basically free.
basically free. I am a coupon. Look at me. But it's hard, I think, for people to really look at those budgets. Like, what am I spending on Uber Eats? What am I spending on DoorDash? What am I eating? And then when we look at that, it's like, oh, I do have room to buy that yummy sauce to go on my chicken at lunch that makes a
Mhm.
difference. I do have room to buy a crock pot. And we just start to try to change the mindset and be realistic. And so I think you have to work with a dietitian that's like, that's doing the work herself. You know, like I grew up in a lower middle class family. I cooked, I learned how to cook. I was a poor college student. I used a crock pot and shopped at Aldi, and I still do a lot of those things. So having somebody who can teach you those things is important, not just tell you. You have to have actionable tools in place. Everybody that I work with already knows what to do. They just don't know how to do it.
Yeah, starting small and that perspective shift. I actually had a moment this week. It was an inflection point where I had a lot going on, and obviously, you're building this thing to society, working my full-time job, living in New York City. There are many things going on. And I had that moment where I was running from a physical therapy appointment. I had somewhere to be later, and okay, perfect. I can just grab some sweet green and whatever. Then when I really thought about the time, I thought, you know what? I can go to Whole Foods. I can grab a rotisserie chicken. I can grab some veggies. I have some potatoes at home, and we're going to make it work. And so it was a moment where I knew, yes, technically, if I submit that order on Sweet Green and just pick it up, I don't have to, deal with the dishes and the preparation. But there's also a way where, if I walk 5 blocks to Whole Foods, grab a couple things, I think it's also a matter of knowing yourself. So for some reason,
Yes.
for me, like the first thing to go when I think about meal prep or what's going to be challenging for me is preparing protein. And
Mhm.
so these days, like if it needs to come down to it, rotisserie chicken, getting
Yeah.
some canned tuna or whatever. Just some things where I'm like, this is a quick, easy prepared protein. And all I have to do is worry about the sides and building a balanced meal. And for me, the easiest way to go about it too is very component based. So I know some people love to do like a full on recipe with all the garnishes and all the things. I've got my cabinet of seasonings. I've got a few Primal Kitchen sauces in the fridge, coconut aminos, and I just kind of build those components. And that's what's worked for me, but it's taken a little bit of trial and error to figure out, okay, how can I don't need to be a beautiful amazing chef, but I can fuel myself and do it in a way that honors my body and also my budget and my time, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. For people who are just starting out, the one thing, like I had a client this week and she's like, it was such a small change, but it actually made such a big difference. And so, like, even if you travel often, packing your own snacks for travel can really be such an incredible game changer. One of my OG clients, she still always posts and she's like, never eat airport food because that's my rule is that I always pack either like a meal or even a sandwich, like turkey, cheese, avocado. It's not that hard. You pack that, you could save yourself like $30 to $40 at the airport, no joke.
Yeah,
If you pack edamame, meat sticks, a freaking apple, I don't care.
love
It's
apples.
so much easier than people think. And travel is such an important place that you could start. If you have a stipend for work, sure, YOLO. But in that case, you can use something like Farmer's Fridge. But if you're not and you're traveling often, packing your own snacks is such an incredible place to start because if you are eating a meal on a plane or you're not eating enough, that's the thing that catapults into worse choices later when we're getting overly hungry.
Yeah. That lack of preparation, like catching yourself unprepared, tends to be the moment when you just go for what's easy and perhaps not. I don't want to label food as good or bad, but not the option that's going to make you feel your best. I'll put it that way.
I mean, like, nothing happens, like, good when we're in desperation. This goes to, like,
Hmm.
dating and food choices. Like,
True.
dingy bar late at night, feeling desperate. We never make good choices in those situations. And it's very similar to, like, how we feel when we're hangry. We just never wanna get there. Like, I never want to be that person, so I'm going to keep myself from that happening.
Yeah. You are also a high performing woman that has been through so many different stages of life, from going through school, getting your master's degree, working in clinic, starting your own business that now is full time. You're a mom, so many things. What's something that's the hardest for you even to this day?
There's a few things. If I see a problem, I love to fix it. And I also want instantaneous feedback that it's fixed. And the body is not instantaneous.
Mm.
So, case in point, like I have been doing progressive overload training and I'm freaking loving it. And I scheduled a DEXA that I had in January, and then I scheduled another one for like March. My girlfriend was like, "You know that clinical data shows that like nothing significant is going to show for 4 to 6 months."
Hmm.
And I was but it's me. So like I can do it faster and better. And faster and better is not always the best, especially for the female body. So I work with a lot of clients that do need me to say, like, get up and walk 10,000 steps a day. You can do that. But that is actually so rare. Most of my clients are like the 6 a.m. hit girlies at berries every day. And they're willing to do the hard things, but they're not willing to do the slow things. And so
Mm.
I am that person. I will go do a hard workout, but I hate the slow progressive strength workout so much. And I have learned that that is where my body thrives. That is where my body builds muscle, that it actually needs a day where I don't do anything hard to recover. And that mindset has been so incredibly hard for me to understand. Honestly, having a toddler has been so healing for my body because I'm freaking tired thanks to him. So some days I can't go do the hard thing I want to do. But I think that most of my clients present that same way. They're like, well, if I do everything perfect, it's going to be fixed and then we're going to be good. And your health is interesting. Like it takes slower for things to change than we think, even with weight loss. Like you might see some weight gain, you might see some water retention, you have hormones that cause your body to do different things throughout the month. It's a longer process than people think. And so you have to have a really strong why. Your why can't be something that fluctuates with aesthetics, to be honest. Like, I work out to be strong for my son and hopefully eventually get to see my grandchildren. Like, that why is never going to change. So, if it was only focused on aesthetics, it would fade and it would wax and wane. So, for my females, we talked about that really early on. Like, what is your goal? What does it look like? Is it a realistic goal? Like, you losing 15 pounds in 2 months is probably not realistic. What do actual health goals need to look like in a world of instantaneous results and peptides and all the things? And also understanding that like harder, faster is not better for eating. Your body likes to be in a rested, digested state. Your body likes a meal to last longer than 5 minutes. Your body
Hmm.
really doesn't do good when all your calories are liquid. The body really likes like a slow movement. And that is not how the world tells successful females to be.
Yeah, that's so real. I like resonate with everything you were saying, which I'm sure is no surprise to you. But even like I was texting with one of my best friends, and we were talking about we look forward to our meals and then we like scarf them down.
Yes.
Why are we doing that? Like that is a moment that's meant to be enjoyed and also just better for digestion, to relax and take a deep breath. And for some reason, it's this thing where okay, boom, 10 minutes in front of a screen. And so that's something where just sitting down and breathing before a meal and like actually chewing completely, like
Yeah.
these are things like you don't even realize in the moment.
Also, it's not taught. Like, so to your credit,
Yeah.
I talked about this to a lot of clients. Like yesterday, my client was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so dumb. Why am I doing that?" I'm like, "Because no one's ever taught you that. Like, don't call
Yeah.
yourself dumb. You're just uneducated." Like, we do not live in a world where you went to health class in seventh grade and they're like, "All right, we're going to talk about meal hygiene and the migrating motor complex and how important it is that you chew your food, applesauce consistency, and put your fork down. It takes some time, and your body needs 3 to 4 hours to digest." That conversation was never had, and like, why? Why was it not had? It would have been so, so helpful. But unless you're working with a really great dietitian, you're probably never hearing that.
Yeah. That's very true. And I think one of the things that is encouraging, but can also sometimes be overwhelming, is the amount of new studies and information. And people are talking about things more than ever before, which again, in some ways is really good. I think for women like us, and likely the women who are listening, it's also easy to fall into the over optimization trap. So, okay, I know all the perfect steps of every possible thing I need to do. I'm going to check, 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 check. I'm taking my supplements, working out 6 days a week, maybe even seven, just because I can't take a break. And, more is better, right? You name it. And there's kind of a fine line there as well. Maybe there is a woman that's trying to check off all those boxes, but where's the intuitive part come in? Like you talked about, like the deep breaths and the slow movement and the things that maybe aren't as glamorous or always talked about.
Yeah. So I wholeheartedly believe that, like, as humans, that we, even in our like greatest efforts, are still supposed to have like some imperfections and some failures. Like, I think
Yeah.
that that's normal. And so I was thinking about this yesterday because, like, I live in a world that there's like so much pressure to like look like quote perfect. And I was like, it's funny. Like, I have no desire to look emaciated. Like, I know I could, and I know that I could like start on a peptide regimen and not eat and all those things. I actually have no desire to live that way. Like, I'm actually totally fine with being like in my body and my body having some like imperfections to it. And maybe that's just like where I'm at in my life now. I think in my 20s, my mindset was different, but I know that like super lean, super biohacked body usually isn't sustainable. And I've seen that side so much of the females that are just like using their health as like a checklist and not enjoying it. I think that when we get to that point when we're like, I worked out, I ate perfect, I did all the things, like it's so robotic that there's no joy in it. And life is so short that like we want it to be joyful. Like, I have clients who are like, well, like I had cake at my son's birthday. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course you will. Like, it's also healthy to do that, to enjoy food. It doesn't inherently mean that you ate 10 slices or like went in the closet and, scarfed down the whole cake. Like, you have control and the ability to enjoy a scenario. And I think that a lot of my clients who come to me, they're like, well, I'm still not seeing results and I'm doing all the things. I'm like, okay, are you sleeping well? Are you resting? Do you have good relationships? Like, do you take time to invest in other things that aren't like health? Like, we're so good at avoiding like the nervous system side of things.
Yeah.
So if you go throughout your day and you can constantly feel like your heart like racing, like, I get it. Like, it is really easy to live in that like fight or flight adrenaline lifestyle. And I'm not going to lie, like early in your career, it might take that to get to where you want to be, but it needs to be an acute short term thing. Like, I did that for 3 years. I worked, 80 hours, flew all over, started all the things. Great. But I also like broke my body. And so I know that that's not sustainable. So understanding that, like, men and women are different. I don't need females to be like lazy or sedentary or only doing yoga and Pilates. But I also need you to understand that, like, your nervous system does matter, that like resting and relaxing are important to recovery that builds a better, stronger, clear body.
I really resonate with what you were talking about of being really comfortable in your body. I think once I had my PCOS diagnosis, and prior to, I had been through seasons of, yeah, 3 coffees a day, working out every single day, sometimes twice a day, and you see the weight start flying off. And to me, that was, I felt like I was getting the praise and the approval, and this is what I need to do, what I need to be, and you see those quick results and really over index. All the while my skin's breaking out, I have extreme fatigue, anxiety, mood issues, and also it was never enough for me. I was never going to find my joy and my validation and my value in what I saw in the mirror or what snaps and claps people were giving me for my body, which is, it took a minute to realize that. Fast forward to doing the things I know are supporting my body, eating healthy fats. That's not scary. That's okay. Like mixing up workouts and doing things that do genuinely feel good, that make me feel really strong. Like this about me. It took me a minute to really pick up the weights and like really get in there and pick up something heavier than a 15 for once in my life. And once I did that, I love feeling strong, and my appetite and my weight and all these things have been just very consistent. And I know that that's like the kind of the obviously, I guess there's a scale victory in the sense that we're not yo-yoing all over the place, but those non-scale victories of, okay, my mood is more stable. I do feel energized and satiated because I am. And those things kind of came with time and I think maturity to realize, okay, sometimes you have to kind of fall flat on your face to get back up and realize what really matters. And oftentimes it is honoring, fueling your body and doing things that bring you joy. So amazing. Okay, I have just a couple rapid fire questions for you before we go. But before we do that, is there anything that I did not ask you about that you wish I had?
I don't think so. I would say, the one thing that I've seen, it was really interesting. I did a DEXA this past year, and in the height of actually, the last one I did, I think it was like with you. We were at like Movement and they were offering DEXAs.
Oh
I think you
yeah.
did one of them too. And
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
at that time, like I was working full time. I was working out in the morning. I was like crushing my workouts. I had horrible gut health. I never did like rest and digest. I never rested. I completely ignored my nervous system. Like I lived my life off of an optimal health checklist. And now I eat more carbohydrates than I ever have. I enjoy foods with my son. I don't drink alcohol anymore. I rarely get a morning workout. I do hard workouts, but I do them like when I can fit into my schedule. And I'm heavier than I was then, but I'm leaner than I ever have
Mm.
been. And it was so interesting to look at the difference like of 7 years and to realize like my body is actually healthier and happier to be slightly bigger, but to also be slightly stronger. And it was such an important reminder that like the smallest version of me is not the way that like the world needs me to show up. And it was like, and just because you're bigger doesn't mean that you're fatter or that you're lazy or that you're tired to get there, that you're actually like the best, strongest version of yourself at that heavier weight. And I think that a lot of times that fear scares women like, well, in order to be my best, I need to stay my smallest. And I just need to remind you that, like, in order to like take up space in a room, like you might have to look a different version of yourself than you do. And it can be really uncomfortable to get there. It took me 7 years to get there. But that was after the hardest seasons of my life, becoming an entrepreneur, becoming a mom, losing my mom, and still being able to show up authentically stronger. It's just important to remember that like your story might end up looking different than you plan.
Amazing. Yeah. No, I resonate with that too because I was always looking back to that like super tiny version of myself from high school or whatever, which is the number one trap for women. Don't look at old photos. But I also have to remind myself, I don't think I literally had a muscle. Like, I don't think there was anything going on there.
No, that was adolescence.
Yes. Yeah, no, and Whitney and I go way back as we just said. I was just flashing back to when over COVID we would do Instagram lives together. Do you remember
Yes!
that?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yes. Oh, that was so fun. I was having like a fitness influencer era, and that's actually how Whitney and I got connected, which is it's just kind of fun to have this full circle moment. So, some rapid fire. First, we're recording this like around lunchtime, but how
Okay.
have you fueled yourself so far today?
Oh, okay. So my
Yes.
breakfast is the same every day. And I actually recommend this to women who are looking for
Yeah.
like less for food to take up less space, find a breakfast you really love. So me, it's 2 eggs, half a cup of egg whites, spinach, and then I used to do fruit, but if I'm 100% honest with you, I don't like fruit as much as I like starch. And so I usually have like half of a bagel. For me, it's like Queen Street bagel, or 2 pieces of toast. And I share my breakfast with my son every morning. It's my favorite thing. And sometimes that bagel has peanut butter on it because he's a fickle toddler, and sometimes it has jelly. It depends. But that's my go-to breakfast every morning.
I do something similar. I do semi-controversial, but I do a smoothie because it works for me. I love to well, some people
It's
feel
great.
like
It's great.
some people feel like you
Cold.
shouldn't do liquid or shouldn't do cold, but for me, like it genuinely has worked. I love the Taylor Duke's bone broth protein, do some berries, chia seeds, sometimes flaxseed protein, and then I do my little collagen coffee moment. So it works for me. But I will say during different phases of my cycle, I might be adding a little bit more to that just because I
Doesn't
need
feel like it.
a little more calories, a little more fuel.
Yeah.
Okay. The second question is if someone's listening to this and she's saying, okay, I want to take a step. I want to do something today to start changing my health for the better and fueling myself. What would you tell her to do? One practical step.
Time your meals. This is twofold. Time your meals to see how long it takes you to eat. So aim for 7 to 10 minutes per meal. And then see how long a meal keeps you full, like from breakfast to lunch and lunch to dinner. If a meal isn't keeping you full 3.5 to 4 hours, that meal is inadequate. So bigger or more satiating meals so that you can go longer and you can think about food less.
Perfect. And last but not least, because this is a very real scenario, and I may take this into account today, we only have 15 minutes to make dinner. What are we making?
What do you have? You have a oven?
Yes, oven, air fryer, stovetop.
Oof, air fryer every time.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you don't have parchment to go in your air fryer, it's super important because it changes the cleaning process. So I have the toaster oven style air fryer, which I prefer, and I have parchment so that I can put everything on the parchment and I can just fold it up when I'm done and toss it. 2 to 3 times a week, we always do frozen salmon because you can thaw it in a bowl of water in
Hmm.
10 minutes. So we put that on. We add some type of frozen vegetable. So it could be broccoli, it could be cauliflower rice. You want to roast your cauliflower rice, never saute it or you'll hate it. And then I chop up like a potato or a sweet potato and I will put that on the third level and I bake them all at the same time. The
Okay.
salmon will always be done in like 10 minutes. The others might take a little bit longer, but I pull the salmon out first. If you're in a super hurry, you could just do a bed of greens with that salmon. And then when the potatoes are done, you could add them on the side.
Yeah, if all else fails, I just grab a handful of arugula and toss it up with
Yeah,
some things, and that's
exactly.
my green for
Also,
the night.
there's like nothing wrong with breakfast for dinner. And there's a
Yeah.
great combination of a like oat, eggs, cottage cheese, and vanilla like blender pancake that you can do on the stovetop that's
Ooh.
super easy. And we make that a lot of times, like spread some peanut butter on it, cut it up. And it's like my son is so happy to do breakfast for dinner. So easy
No,
peasy.
that sounds amazing. I love breakfast food too, so that sounds incredible.
Yeah, works
Okay,
great.
perfect. It's incredible all the wisdom that you have, especially in this space. And eating is something we all have to do, ideally 3 times a day. And so I'm just hoping that the woman on the other end of this is able to take away some of these things. Also, to hear from our stories that we've got some things figured out, we don't have it all figured out. And we're kind of all navigating this journey together. So
Yeah,
thank you
we're
so
all
much,
human.
Whitney.
Thank you.